Hello and welcome to another product deep dive by Sounds Profitable. Today we have Mike Kadin, CEO of RedCircle, and we're going to dig into their publisher-focused side of their platform. Now, what I like about RedCircle is that it has opportunities for both the podcasters themselves and advertisers, so definitely check it out direct. But this focus and this deep dive is all about how podcasters can monetize their inventory. So Mike, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and RedCircle, and then let's dive in.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Mike Kadin. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of the company. RedCircle's been around for a little more than 3 years now. And we are a platform that helps podcasters to grow their audience and monetize their work. We're very focused on independent podcasters that are looking to take the work seriously and grow an audience and build revenue. And then we have our entire advertising platform, which enables brands to be able to purchase that advertising inventory through a fully automated advertising platform that we call Wrap. And today, we're going to show you around the podcaster side of the system, show you how podcasters can configure dynamic insertion, configure their inventory, set pricing, and all the other features that are part of our automated ad platform.
Awesome. And so this is a hosting platform with, like we said, dynamic ad insertion, some programmatic opportunities, and a marketplace, the Wrap marketplace. The big differentiator for RedCircle is that the marketplace focuses very heavily on, or solely on, host-read ads, correct?
Not solely, but definitely heavily.
No?
So we do programmatic advertising, we do host-read advertising. We also have tools to monetize through listener payments. And so one way to think about RedCircle from a podcaster's perspective is as a sort of business in a box. Everything you need to run your podcast from soup to nuts. You take care of the creation of the content, and our software can help you with everything else from marketing it to monetizing it in whatever form of monetization works for you and your content.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. So let's dive in. So we're going to start on the side. So I'm a podcaster. I have a show already set up. We got 2 sample shows here. So what are we going to dig into first?
Yeah, let me show you around. So as Bryan said, RedCircle is hosting software. And the reason why we do hosting software is so we can work on higher order, more interesting problems like monetization. But it is a fully featured hosting platform. You can see here, I have more than one show on my account. I can import more shows, create shows. I get sort of quick look analytics across all my shows here. And I can observe the show, its downloads and other details over time. And then if I go into one of the specific shows, quickly just sort of highlights some of the stuff that we have across the platform. So of course, content management of your episodes, helping you to set up distribution to Apple and Spotify and everywhere else. This exclusive content and donations section, which is really about collecting payments from your fans. And then of course we have a fully featured analytics section. And then where we're going to spend a bunch of time today on advertising. So just wanted to pop in here for a second and show you around sort of all these different features to show you that we're doing a lot of the stuff that you can find in other hosting platforms, even though our primary focus is helping you with growth and monetization. If I go and take a look at my episodes and then actually go into a particular episode itself, I wanted to highlight one of the key features of RedCircle, which is its dynamic insertion system. So if I click here on Insertion Points, this is one of my episodes. It's called The Joys of Gaming. And here when I click on Insertion Points, it's bringing up the RedCircle Insertion Point Editor. And this lets me decide where within my content I want any dynamic audio to be inserted. So we're not just going to stick something in the middle of a word. We're not going to just put something in the content in a place where you don't want it. The creator has full control over where within the content you'd like audio to be inserted. And it's not just advertising. It's more than that. It's whatever dynamic audio you'd like to set up. So you can see here on this waveform, I can have multiple insertion points and I can put them in different places. I can zoom into the content and really find the exact spot between words where I want the audio to be inserted. And RedCircle has a definition of pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll as well. So you can see those different regions here color-coded with the different insertion points.
What determines where pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll start in it?
Yeah, it depends on the length of the content. So if your stuff is really short, it's percentage based. So if you had a short, 1 or 2 minute episode, I think it's just the first 10% of the content. And then once you get to longer, it's time based. And I think it's 2 minutes is what we do by default, but it might be 5. So it sort of depends on how long your content is. This sample audio we're looking at is only 7 seconds long. So, this is just the first 10%, the last 10%.
Gotcha. And for each of those markers at pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll, can I put multiple mid-rolls, multiple pre-roll, multiple post-roll, or?
Yep, you can add as many insertion points as you'd like, and you do that by just clicking Add Insertion Point, and that gives you a new one that you can drag around and put wherever you want. And so you can have lots of them. You can have them like right next to each other if you want to have two audio breaks right next to each other. So you can really put and do whatever you want with them. And then when you click on this little head at the top of the insertion point, you get an actual timestamp. So if you have a list from your editor or something with exact timestamps, you don't have to drag it around. You can edit it right here. And then you can assign it in audio block. And we're going to talk more about sort of RedCircle's model in a moment, but this allows you to put whatever sort of dynamic audio you want assigned to this particular point.
Very cool. Okay, and so that means that like the individual markers, I can't say that this marker represents the ability to have 3 ads. I would create 3 different markers and put them within the millisecond of each other, and it would accomplish that goal.
That's one way to do it. The other thing is that these audio blocks are not necessarily individual audio files. So I'm going to take you there in a second, and we'll look at audio blocks as an entity where you can have more than one audio file assigned to a particular audio block and do interesting configurations there as well.
Yeah, excited to learn about audio blocks. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, well, let's go do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and go take a look at our dynamic insertion section, which is here. So in dynamic insertion, again, we have this concept of insertion points. In addition to the insertion point editor that we just showed you, you can also do quick looks at what's assigned to individual insertion points here and in some other screens where you don't have to do it in the waveform editor. You can just sort of edit them along the way here. But then in audio blocks, which I think is the most interesting piece of the puzzle, you can create and edit interesting audio configurations that are not necessarily just one file. So for example, I've got this one, which I've just called New York Live Event Update. So imagine you're a podcaster and you're having a live event in New York City. And so it's an advertisement, but it's not like an ad that you sold at a CPM. You're running sort of a promotion for something that's your own, for example. And in this case, I can add an audio file to this break. And this is a very simple audio block configuration where there's just one audio file and it's going to get played. However, I can do multiple different audio files or cross promotions. I'll talk about that in just a moment as a part of this this single audio block. Let me just add a file real quick to this. And you can see now I've got 3 different sort of little audio block items is what we call them in an individual audio block. And so I can assign this to an insertion point and it will play these 2 audio files. And then in addition to that, I can do some cool stuff with play style and play up to. So before I talk about that, so just stepping back, you would take this audio block that I'm creating and assign it to an insertion point. And then when that insertion point comes up in the audio, we will evaluate the configuration that you see here and figure out what audio is to be inserted. So the simplest...
So this is a little...
Go ahead.
This is definitely different than a lot of other dynamic ad insertion focusing on campaigns and line items and strategies and creatives. This is why you keep emphasizing dynamic insertion, because the focus here is in this block, you can put whatever you want.
That's right. We have lots of folks that use this for their intro music, or for this example like I'm using where they're doing their own promotions across their back catalog, or they use it for ads they sell on their own. There's lots of different ways to use it. And we're not trying to sort of force folks into a particular model of how to do so. We're just trying to give generic tools to be able to create whatever dynamic audio experiences you'd like.
Yeah, let's dig through the play style and play up to, but I do have 2 questions that I want to dig into.
Sure.
After.
Okay. So right here we have the play style and the play up to count, which allows you to create really interesting configurations. So if you have 3 different sort of items here, the standard case would be to say in order as the play style and play up to 3. And that would mean, we're going to run through these 3 items in order, and we're going to play all 3 of them. Another configuration that would be interesting is instead of in order, we could do random. And then each unique download of this of the episode that contains this audio block, the order of these 3 files would be randomized, which is a nice way to sort of vary things up for podcast listeners in case they're listening to say binging through a true crime saga that has 6 parts. Each ad break, you want to sort of vary it up a little bit. Maybe you just want to change the order. And then what you can also do is actually change the play up to something less than the total number of items here. So for example, if I did play up to 2, it would select 2 of these at random in each unique download of the episode that this audio block is assigned to. So again, helps the podcaster to create audio setups that are a little bit more dynamic and a little bit different for each download of the content. So you can come up with really cool ways to set that up.
Yeah. Now, I guess the question that I have is, can you set like pacing or impression limits for each of those files there?
You cannot. So this is not oriented for sort of like advertising campaign tools. We have an entire advertising platform that advertisers can use to purchase advertising space on the content. And that has all kinds of sophisticated tools for targeting and pacing and everything else. But this is more for podcasters that are looking to configure their own dynamic audio.
Awesome. So this is a really cool thing to focus on here for a second. I like to think that dynamic ad insertion, as it's built out right now, is built on campaign focus. It's built for advertising. It's built in the mindset that it's not 100% fill, which is really counter to how it can be used, right? A lot of people use dynamic ad insertion, like Mike said, to change out the intro music to a show, to run a promo, to do all of these different things here that are honestly more like editing, but not done by the producer, right? So what this does here is this takes that content and allows the ad ops team, or the sales, I guess mostly the ad ops team and the account team, to be able to go in there and determine what Lego blocks they're going to use, instead of kicking the file back over to the production team and saying, hey, can you re-edit it in this specific way, right? This is, let's call it a way to dynamically mimic baked in type solutions. You're building a new MP3 with some variables, but the intent is it's going to fill. These blocks are set to fill in these specific markers 100%, and how they fill are up to the rules here, so it's a little bit more flexible. Like Mike said, you're not hearing the same thing over and over again, but these blocks will fill. The block will never run out if it's assigned.
That's true for anything that says audio file, but we have cross promotions and we have ad campaigns. So I'll show you what those look like now, I guess. And I think it's relevant for this conversation. Let's say I chose in order and I chose play up to 2. RedCircle has a cross promotion system. It allows you to partner with another podcast on the platform. Both parties exchange an audio file to promote their own podcasts on the other show, and both parties get to approve the audio before the campaign goes live. And while those are running, we'll insert those cross-promotional ads into any item that's marked as cross-promotion here, for example. And so, those won't always get filled if there's no cross-promotion running. And so that's just the part that was a little different than what you said there, is specifically for cross-promotions and for ads, which I'll show you in a second. It doesn't always fill. And you can also do creative stuff with the play style and the play up to deal with that. So, for example, in this case, if I did in order and play up to 2, if there was no cross promotions running, it would play these other 2 files. And if there was, it would just play the cross promotion and then the first file and stop. So there is like some dynamism inside the audio block itself, depending on how you configure it.
That piggybacks on what you were saying specifically about the fact that the advertiser tools in that more dynamic ad insertion mindset and the more campaign focus is more associated with what you're offering to advertisers. So the cross promo being that both publishers, both sides of that equation are advertisers in that case, and the other aspects of the ad audio that will be about your ad products for your marketplace or programmatic are advertisers making those buys. Those have the standard campaign offerings that we're used to.
Yep, that's right. And, one way to think about our software is that it's designed for independent publishers, right? They have significant audiences. They take their work seriously. They're producing amazing content, but they don't have an ad ops team. They don't have an ad sales team. It's usually just 1 or 2 people doing this anywhere from, date night money to small business money. And so what our software does is enables them to have the same kind of tools that you can get from these sophisticated enterprise solutions, but to put it in the hands of podcast creators in a little bit of a simpler way, but in an equally powerful way. So let me go back and show you a little bit more about the advertising side. So I'm going to show you the advertising configuration in a second, sort of how you configure your inventory and your pricing. But let me show you how it works with respect to dynamic insertion. So anybody that's opted into Wrap, which is our advertising platform, gets this default ad block created on their account. And the ad block has 2 what we call automatic RedCircle ad items. And this gets created and you can assign it to your ad inventory on the show. So if I was to go back to one of my episodes, I can say, all right, I want this particular episode to have some like advertising inventory pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll. So for example, I can take this one and say I want that to be ad inventory. Okay, I want this mid-roll one to be ad inventory, and so on, right? So I can add as much inventory. Let's say maybe this post-roll one I want to keep as my New York live event update. I can create as much inventory as I want. I can have multiple mid-roll spots with ad inventory, and I create that on each one of my episodes. And by default, RedCircle will insert them pre, post, and one mid-roll spot when you upload a new episode. So the podcaster has control of where they want their ad inventory to be. And again, they can create multiple insertion points and put them wherever they want to go. And then meanwhile, go ahead.
When you say that RedCircle will insert that, do you mean there'll be new markers that I will have to place for episodes?
Yep. Right after you upload the episode, you're going to go right to this screen when you create a new episode, and it will tell you, hey, make sure you move this mid-roll one because it's probably going to be, we've set it at 50%. It's up to the podcaster to like manipulate that, but we do that right in real time after you upload your episode, and we don't let you go anywhere else in the app until you change it. So it's important to move that mid-roll as soon as you get going.
Okay. And now I have a question. If let's say that I have 100 episodes already with you and I decide to opt into this, can I mass add an ad block to episodes? Or do I have to go into each episode manually?
You cannot mass do insertion points. You can mass assign an audio block. I can show you that in a second. Yeah. So to existing insertion points.
It's not great to mass do insertion points. Those need focus. You need to listen where they go on each episode. But as long as you can mass associate an ad block to previous mid-rolls or whatnot, that's valuable.
Yep, totally. And, we have some tools that our support team can use to mass add insertion points. So if you had like a spreadsheet of all of your, historical timestamps, we can go and insert those on the back end for new customers.
And I think that's the right way to go about it. I think sometimes, especially with a product background, what I found was that there are features that would make things easier for a small subset of publishers. And we focus sometimes as product people on making those available just because it hits support a few times. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, as long as it is available, it doesn't always have to be client facing right away.
Yep.
And so that's really good to know that the option exists.
Yeah, we spend most of our time working on the tools that are going to help our podcasters to grow most effectively and earn most effectively. And so we may not have a million bells and whistles, but the bells and whistles we do have are the ones that are putting dollars in podcasters' pockets. So that's usually the lens by which we make those choices.
Yeah.
All right, so you've configured a bunch of inventory for your advertising, but what's actually going to be placed there? And the answer is what RedCircle's advertising sales squad is out there selling on your behalf. So we go direct to brands, we go to agencies, we present our inventory to them, and we present our advertising platform to them to bring them online and buying into our inventory. And that entire process is managed through our automated software. And so if you want to participate in the ad platform, then you can come in here into Wrap, and you can configure your show. So for example, I've got this show in the lobby that I've sort of is a demo pod. So, these numbers are made up and the brands are made up, just to be clear. These are not all our customers. But just to give you an idea of what it might look like if you had a successful podcast on RedCircle that was earning, in the ad platform section, we'll show you, how much you've made, what you've made on HostRed, what you've made on programmatic, your historical campaigns and how much they were for and all the details there. And also we'll let you set up the settings for your podcast in the ad platform. So I'm going to run through these briefly. First of all, you can opt into HostRed advertising and programmatic advertising separately. So you can have both of them. You can have one or the other. It's really up to you. We have some podcasters that want it all. We have some podcasters that don't want to do the work for host reads. We have some podcasters that find programmatic ads to be not in alignment with their content. So really trying to give as much flexibility to the podcaster as possible. And so in this, we're talking about host read ads. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, and you can set your pricing for those ads depending on whatever you'd like the price to be. We give you some recommendations based on the size of your show and the market. And then we also have what we call spot rates. So the advertiser can buy in two styles. We have what we call all episodes, which you might think of as is often called the DAI. It means you're buying on every download of this particular podcast, even if it's on a historical episode. And this is where the rates are decided for that. That's the most typical way that we sell it. But some advertisers prefer to buy a particular episode of that podcast that drops in a particular week. And in that case, we do what we call spot rates, which are, the cost that of the number of downloads that a single episode gets. And by default, we can take your rates that you're applying to your overall DAI style campaigns, and then just apply them to your episode size, and we can take care of it for you. Or if you want, you can set individual rates for what it costs to buy an episode in these different regions.
And those rates are flat. That's why they're.
That's right.
Thousands.
So you say like sometimes people, I mean, these numbers are made up. Don't focus too much on the numbers, but yeah, sometimes people will say, if you're going to buy a specific episode, I'm going to sell that as a premium, as opposed to you're buying, just sort of my audience.
No, I hear you. Okay, and so one thing that I want to focus on the numbers above in the host read aspect is that net to the publisher? Am I saying I want $20 of this, or is this gross to the advertiser?
This is gross to the advertiser, and RedCircle takes a 30% cut from the ads that we sell.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, those are pretty in line, the numbers that you're showing there. You do show like the rates, and I mean, obviously one of the things for RedCircle and the thing that you're focusing on is this is the creator economy tool that you're talking about here, right? You're not necessarily going with high-end enterprise publishers. It's still high-end content, but this is about that mid tier, right? All around it, right? The lower and upper mid tier, being able to run this yourself, like you said, date money to maybe quit your job money. So the CPMs that it's saying that you're recommending there are a little bit lower than what we've seen on the industry standard, but the industry standard that quote unquote is being reported on, is being talked about right now, is about enterprise level sales. And that's a big thing for people to keep in mind. So if you're a publisher and you're looking at this and you hear that the average CPM rate is $25, the things to keep in mind are, one, that's a $25 gross. That's what the advertiser is paying. So then you have to come into the net. 30% cut is, really reasonable, especially on a technology side platform, especially for host read, in that mindset. And then two, it's really the scale, right? That $25 CPM still might involve talking directly with the publisher, handling it through IOs, having a relationship with the agency, having enough volume that your show or your small network could be enough to run an entire campaign on. And for RedCircle, the focus is on aggregating those people, getting them all together so that the advertiser can really take advantage of it. So the prices will be lower, but these are very great. These are really competitive rates, especially in that like self-monetization area.
Yeah, I have a lot of things to say about what you just said. So first of all, what I'll say is this yellow sort of warning text, this is suggest prices for you based on the size of your show. And it's based on our understanding of what's going to make a show attractive to the advertiser. You can set whatever price you want, anywhere from $2 to $100. That's the limit. But as your show gets a little bit smaller, it gets harder and harder to attract an advertiser to buying. And so if you can shrink your seat pricing by a little bit, it makes your show a lot more enticing. But again, you can pick whatever you want. Generally speaking, we're seeing folks price their show somewhere around this $25 mid-roll range, some a little higher, some a little bit lower. And that's sort of in line with the market. Where I would disagree with you a little bit, Brian, is that I don't see our inventory as like of lower quality because it's mid-market. I actually see it as the opposite. Consistently within our own campaigns, when we look at performance data, we see that the smaller shows outperform from an ROAS perspective. That advertisers are finding that the sort of niche audiences and the intimate relationships between hosts and brands often draw, and the fact, frankly, that our ads are not sort of overloaded with advertisements, make it so that the ads are higher performing and more authentic. And so, the fact that the industry hovers around this $25 amount, we would actually like to see that get priced according to the performance. And I think we're going to see more of that come out in the future as more and more tools come out to measure that performance.
I want to be super clear. As Sounds Profitable goes out to a paltry few thousand people,
right.
1,000 downloads a month, niche content is king. And I think some of those standards actually showed that you could price higher for some of the niche content, especially with the direct relationship. More what I was emphasizing is that for an advertiser, for bulk buying across multiple, for the host read, there is some more operational costs. And so like you said there, the smaller your show is, it is often beneficial to price a little bit lower so that you get included in that deal, because there is the aspect of promo codes. There is the aspect of potentially sending out a sample or having a vanity URL or setting up tracking and looking at all of there's a little more overhead for working with the mid to long tail publishers. And that's not a bad thing. It's just where we are in the space. When you can buy at $25 across just one publisher, like you said, the performance might not be there. That's something we need to start focusing on. Performance is more important, but the overhead for working with 100 publishers to fit that gap sometimes need to be made up right now through different CPM prices.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. The other way
Yeah.
to do it is to use RedCircle's advertising platform, which really takes all that operational overhead out of the
There
way.
you go.
But that's another deep dive for another customer in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the advertising side of this.
Yeah. Let's keep rolling. So, every podcast on the platform gets its own unique promo code, and we have our podcasters really training their audience to use that code for every ad read, and that helps the advertisers to make sure they're seeing attribution stuff over there. RedCircle also on RedCircle ad campaigns that run through Wrap. We also support all of the sort of pixel attribution vendors, and that all gets handled upstream. The podcaster never has to touch it. We also collect information about the host of the show, like their names, as well as their addresses, so that if the brand wants to send free samples of the product from the advertisement, we sort of make that as easy as possible and can transmit all the shipping information to the brand before the campaign runs. We also ask podcasters to hop into Spotify for Podcasters and grab their demographic information and put it in here. This really just helps us to be able to present the show to brands in a way that makes sense to them, so they can find the audience that they're looking for. We also have podcasters enter their social media links so that that brands can come and examine their what else they're publishing and get a feel for the show and its audience.
For the listener side, how often should a publisher be updating that?
We don't see them very dramatically. We have a little script where we can take a look and see if there's big variance between this and what Spotify is currently reporting. And we don't see that shows get out of whack. Most of the time you don't have massive demographic shifts of your show. It's more about the content itself, right?
But I think that's really good to know for people. I think I would love to hear from you in the future on a guidance of like what intervals you should be looking at to update this, right? Like if you move from 100 downloads to 10,000 downloads, probably good to update that, right? But at what point do you continue updating?
Yeah, good point.
It would be really interesting. But I think that you're spot on there. Like you don't start with like an overwhelmingly male-led audience and then completely pivot to the point where it over-indexes female. The advantage of the Spotify data is that it is first-party data. It is from people logging in. Right. So this is really powerful data, and that's awesome that you guys pulled that in there. And I'm sure you're evaluating, if you're not using it already, from social media. There's all the different graphs out there that can take that and look at the audiences of it and kind of gauge how accurate all that is. And this is really cool. You're providing a lot of great information for the advertiser to learn about you, because I think as we continue to expand podcasting, we're realizing that podcasting is a brand exercise, even if it is performance-based. Most podcasters are still talking about their advertisers and other social media channels. They're putting clips up in different places. It's a multifaceted approach. Very few people are still only talking into a microphone, shooting it out just on the RSS feeds. We're seeing it in YouTube. We're seeing it on other social medias like you list here. And so that whole connection there, I got to bet that in the next year, the social aspect of this expands a little bit more in podcasting, and we're going to see you be able to provide some really cool things there.
Yeah, totally. Right now we just have podcasters enter links so that brands can go and check it out, but you can totally imagine us sort of OAuthing into these various accounts so we can look at statistics on their audience size and other pieces there too. A big part of this for us, including this, is also to help brands to get more comfortable purchasing ads on shows that move further and further from the head of the market. Now we do have minimum size requirements to enter into Wrap, but it's 500 downloads per week, so doesn't have to be a huge show. And if brands can come in and take a look at the Instagram and see high production value, see an engaged audience, then it can help them to get comfortable on buying on shows that they've never heard of before.
And that collaborative awareness, I think, is really powerful. We talk about brand safety a lot in this space, or brand suitability, which I like better. And the mindset there that I think is that it's a tool, right? It's all about using technology to surface data for a human to look at and say, yes, I do agree with that, or I don't. And by you starting to collect this data, Mike, with you in RedCircle doing that, I think it's very attractive, because I can picture a future where you audit and look for keywords that are concerning on social.
Yep.
You look for it through transcription in the podcast, and you provide it as an opportunity for these brands to check off or dismiss working with that specific publisher. And that's great. You're creating these profiles, and yeah, I definitely am excited to get a walk through the advertiser side too.
Yep, totally. So just showing now also the what an advertiser would see if they were looking at your show. So we let podcasters kind of view their profile. This is what an advertiser who's browsing our catalog would see. It's the details that we just put in: pricing, demographics, social media. In the case of me being a podcast that has done a bunch of ads before recently run ads will also show up here, and you can even play back other ad reads from the podcast so that the advertiser can say, oh, are these folks any good at reading the ad? What other advertisers have been purchasing on the content lately? And get a feel for, is this a good fit for my brand? And so podcasters can come and understand what we're presenting to advertisers through this profile page.
Very cool.
Last thing I'll show is about the programmatic settings. So in addition to host red, we also have programmatic ads. With programmatic ads, it's less work for the podcaster. You don't have to record the audio. It's also a little bit less control, right? Each individual download that happens on RedCircle is getting a unique mix of real-time demand from different advertisers that we insert programmatically. So if you want to turn those on, you can turn them on and off from here. You can control sort of how we represent your show's category to programmatic buyers. And then you can also exclude, certain categories of advertising. So for example, if you don't want any politics on your podcast, any political ads, you can add that category here and those ads will no longer be inserted. And you sort of have full control over there. You can turn all these off. You can turn on as many as you want. And sort of giving podcasters as much comfort as they can to not necessarily be approving each individual advertiser, but also sort of making sure that there's alignment between what's your content and who's advertising, and also giving you control to sort of remove. Let's say you're running a host red ad for HelloFresh, you can turn off any like food related ads that are happening programmatically for the safety of HelloFresh as a brand.
And that's a really interesting way to look at it. So we think so much about competitive separation as tagging up every direct campaign, tagging up every second seat seller campaign, tagging up programmatic campaign, and letting it handle it for you. The way this tool is focused is if you're handling a direct campaign, well, then you would exclude the programmatic categories. And the wrap aspect for like a host thread, you're reading it. So if it's HelloFresh or a competitor to HelloFresh, you know that you direct sold HelloFresh, you know not to accept it until that window of the campaign expires. You have all those controls there. I like how you're going about all this stuff. These advertising tools tend to be built a lot for the brand to come in and manually set this up, very similar to how programmatic has evolved. But you set these up for the publisher first focus in the publisher side, and it's very clear you have the advertiser side in mind too. And you handle kind of like an appropriate translation in there so that each side is addressed how they need to be instead of trying to understand the other way. And that's great. Like a lot of ad serving in podcasting mimics the high end. And if you're just getting started, it's real rough to like fully grasp campaigns and strategies and line items and creatives and rotation and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very good first approach to it. It's a very interesting and refreshing take on it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I just want to talk about real quick is that on the advertising side that you handle through Wrap and through programmatic, you're handling that dynamically inserted. You're working through your own ad server and external ad servers, and that handles the ability to take tracking pixels, right? So Chartable, Podsites, Claritas, all of those partners, you can handle that in there.
Yep, we can run those on the campaigns that run through Wrap. That's right.
Awesome. Okay, so but if I have a direct sold campaign, I cannot attach those.
Not via a pixel, no.
Okay.
It's more of
But
just
can
a
I do that
constraint
as a-
of the dynamic insertion platform, not like we've built it into the ad platform because we have sophisticated advertisers that are doing that all the time, whereas we haven't quite built that into the dynamic insertion part yet.
Is it on the roadmap?
Probably. I think generally speaking, most of the the podcasters that work with RedCircle are working with us because they want us to be the ones selling their inventory. They may, have other ad deals that come by from time to time. And so we tend to focus our roadmap on the things that help the podcasters make money through us because that's where most of our podcasters are earning. But adding a pixel is not a tremendous engineering leap either.
But that's a good differentiation. You're encouraging your publishers to think of and focus on their content as sponsorship. and sponsorship means like a permanent thing. Are publishers able to do prefix tracking with Chartable or Podsites or Podtrack or any of those partners?
Not at the moment. I think you'll find that other podcast hosts with similar business models to us have avoided doing that. We're not necessarily in opposition to doing it. It's just, again, about engineering prioritization for us. We tend to spend time on the things that help us to close deals on your behalf, which is mostly the advertising technology that goes on within Wrap as opposed to outside of it.
And this is the reason why I'm asking all these questions and tailoring it this way is, I think sometimes, especially in ad tech, very few people are going to be able to say in ad tech like, hey, it's very often that we focus on things in ad tech because we're selling something, right? Like part of ad tech is you're selling a product, and we can over-engineer some things, and we can aim for a higher demographic or a lower demographic, and it just can get muddied. Not every piece of ad tech needs to be in every single platform. And I bring this up because RedCircle is allowing people to do basically a more clean version of a host-read ad, right? You're leaving less risk on the table. You don't have to leave it in there permanently. You don't have to send it back to an editor, re-upload the file, risk duplicate downloads because things auto-download when you change the file on some podcast apps. They're handling, and that's their main focus, right? You want to take the ad like sales off their shoulders. And so you're handling both a host read option, which is fantastic, and programmatic, which is great too, as it ramps up. And you handle all those advertiser needs there. So we think, and we kind of are, I would say I've even been harsh on the fact of like not being IAB certified or not being able to use third-party tracking. But the truth is you split the line in a very cool, clever way that people need to understand tailors to two audiences. Your ad side, while you're not IAB certified, can use IAB certified pixels, and you're comfortable billing off of that like we've talked about in the past. And for the publisher side, they have everything they need there. If a publisher is very heavily selling IAB like tracked or third-party tracked campaigns, and that is the primary basis of how they're using a hosting platform, RedCircle might not be for them.
That's right.
And that's very cool. We're starting to enter the second phase, I think, of podcast ad tech, where we're not trying to be a catch-all for everything. We're owning it because podcasting is vast.
That's right.
It's like really wide, right? We got people winning, Cannes Film Festival awards, and we got me and you turning this into a video and throwing it on a podcast feed. Those are still in the same category, but there are so many different companies or small entities that are working in the space that need different products. So, kudos to you for that. I'm sure you have weathered quite a lot of pushback on it, but at the end of the day, if you look at each of your customers, instead of mashing them together or talking about podcasting in the whole, you're absolutely filling the needs that each of them has.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, we focus on independent podcasters who are good at what they do but are struggling to monetize. If you've got like 1 million ad deals and you got an ad sales team and an ad ops person that's doing all these configurations and stuff like that, there are enterprise tools that may be better suited for you. I'll be the first to admit. This software is designed for someone who's amazing at content but doesn't want to have to learn an entire business and an entire industry, an entire complicated set of software. Let's offload that onto RedCircle. You can get in this software and use it, focus on your content, and let us monetize it to the fullest. And the more of those independent podcasters that we bring onto the platform, the more inventory we have, the more advertising we can secure. The more advertising we can secure, the more independent folks want to come on and join us. And so there's a sort of flywheel there that's going to put us in a position where we can most effectively monetize these middle market podcasts through this Wrap platform, but certainly not get in the way if you sell a local deal or a one-off deal, like, feel free to use the software and do whatever you want. We don't take a cut if you sell it on your own. It's yours to do. But again, our engineering team is very focused on building the software and tools that enable us to be able to deliver the revenue that people come to RedCircle for.
I really respect that. Having a strong stance, having an audience that you focus on and supporting them directly. It's not easy. There's a lot of pressure pushing people in all sorts of different directions. So kudos to you on that.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you look at the numbers, and we have our data internally to show this, 65% of the podcast listening is happening on shows in the middle market and below, right? And we all know, the vast majority of the money that's being made in the space is only going to the top 500, top 1,000 shows in the game. And so it requires a piece of software and a product thinking and decision making that is oriented towards getting those 65% of podcast listeners or of podcasters that have 65% of that listening paid, requires us to focus the product on delivering for those folks, because we can't have a catch-all solution for the top and the middle.
100%. And the translation layer of addressing each individually, and that's the real ticket. That's how this industry grows, because you can't handle you can't hand the long tail, which is some of them are on your platform, but like we're talking mostly mid tail. If we're going to capture long tail and then mid tail and the top tier, it's got to be about translation. You can't hand them a robust dynamic ad insertion platform and say go nuts. It's not gonna be for them.
Right.
But we still have to find ways to monetize that inventory for advertisers and monetize it for publishers.
That's right. And that what I just said does not apply to the sophistication of our advertising tools, right? We give advertisers all the stuff they need to be able to execute campaigns in as sophisticated a way as they're used to, if not more sophisticated in a host-read context. That is the crux of the service that we're delivering, enabling the largest budgets and the largest brands to be able to purchase on dozens or even hundreds eventually of middle market podcasts in just a couple of clicks.
Which is huge. That's how we expand the industry. There's only going to be so many shows that can sit at the top. By virtue of a top 100, you can only have 100 in it. So
that's right.
Well, awesome. What else do we got to look at before we wrap this up?
I think that's kind of it, man. I think it's been a pretty good summary. Last thing I guess I'd say is you earn dollars on the platform through advertising. You can also earn through subscription payments, and you can just come right in here into the money page, explore the different payments that you've had historically, and click one button to send whatever your balance is to your bank account. RedCircle handles the payment stuff end to end. We collect from the advertiser. We pay out to you. Again, trying to make this as easy as possible so you don't have to get an accounting degree. You can just push the red button and the money shows up tomorrow.
Very cool. Mike, this was really awesome. I think that you're thinking about this in a really great way. I think that podcasters that are taking podcasting seriously and are trying to grow their business and treat it like a business would, be really well served by trying out RedCircle. I think that it sounds like your team's got this wrapped up. And the best thing is having an ad sales team that can represent you with robust tools, with great offerings, talking to the biggest names in the space and being able to represent more publishers, being able to represent it programmatically, being able to especially represent it host-read at scale. It's killer.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're working hard and growing the software and the team and the capabilities every day. So we'll hope to do even more as the business grows.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to wrap this up, and I'm excited to have you back in the future because I really want to learn all about the advertiser side of this too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
See you later.